Thank you for downloading this Real Agriculture podcast. Excite your crops with inputs from Excite Bio. Access nitrogen and phosphorus with Excite Bio's lineup of inoculants and ag biologicals. Since 2010, they've been helping farmers harness the power of the soil. Learn more at excitebio.ca. That's XITEBIO.ca.
Sean Haney here with realagriculture.com and Real Ag Radio, World Radio 147 to Sirius XM. We're joined right now by the CEO and one of the founders of CMN. Hey, James Mitchell, how are you doing?
Great. Happy to be here.
Yeah, it's great to chat with you. I'm really looking forward to next week's CMN business seminar. I'm going to be speaking at it. Really looking forward to it. I've heard a lot about this event. Lots of farmers come to town to hear about some of the big issues and things being discussed in the world of agriculture. First of all, before we start, we're going to talk about the fertilizer market here today, but tell us a little bit more about CMN.
Yeah, you bet. So we're an ag retail chain in central Alberta. We have 11 locations stretching from Mayerthorpe to the northwest down to Castor in the southeast and most parts in between. So we cover off about 2 million acres in central Alberta. It'll be our customer base.
Yeah, you're covering off a lot of different conditions with
Absolutely.
the geographical spread. Some areas used to rain, some areas not so much. Let's start with the fertilizer market. You know, if farmers have really been paying attention here as of late, of course, to the slide down in the commodity prices, but also gets mentioned is, fertilizer has come down. That's generally how it's being referred to. I guess from your vantage point, how much?
It's been a very choppy market all year. So we've seen fertilizer prices start with a 5 up to an 8, back down to a 6, and now we're heading back to an 8, and that's speaking basis of urea. So, phosphates, they're definitely high and staying high. They're going to be $1,200 or more by the time spring rolls around, if you can even get it. So there's a real shortage of phosphate. And, early spring in the U.S. coupled with tight supplies, it's not looking good, actually, for supply for Western Canada.
For phosphate specifically?
Yeah, phosphate specifically.
Okay, so get on farm as quickly as possible.
Yeah, if your dealer has it. I know we're seeing quite a few delays already on our rail schedule, which we have the advantage of having a CN and CP rail access. And Western Canada is completely import phosphate right now, so it's an uncomfortable feeling right now.
So will there be enough to supply the market in your estimation? And it's a case of just making it happen logistically, or there's X demand and there's only going to be Y supply and there's a gap?
I think it really depends on how early our season is.
Okay.
If we have an early season in Western Canada, I don't think logistically we'll get it all moved.
Concerning. I was hoping we were past all of these supply issues around fertilizer.
Yeah, me too. Obviously, it's a horrible situation for everybody.
When we a lot of times we talk about the nitrogen corn price ratios and things like that, as we have seen some of the commodities fall off, as you look at the price of nitrogen heading into the springtime, is there much room for much more of a reduction at this point, or is that going to be more of a 25 story?
Yeah, definitely a 25 story. I mean, we'll see a reset on all fertilizer prices. Nitrogen's looking for a big haircut post spring, but it's a demand driven market right now, and so we see U.S. prices escalating at the Gulf daily. They have a lot of urea that they need to import, and they need to attract those imports. So, spot barges, we're talking north of 380 US a short today, which is a significant increase since the beginning of the year. So we see that price continue to escalate. So unfortunately, it's we're seeing commodity prices decrease, fertilizer prices increase, which is worst case scenario for a grower.
Yeah, you've been in the retail game for a while. There was a period where the retailer made pretty good money on buying fertilizer, holding, and selling to the farmer. With the volatility we've seen in the fertilizer market in the last 5 years, that strategy has definitely been sort of like balled up and thrown in the trash. How, from a retailer's perspective, how do you view the fertilizer market now, trying to make sure that one, you don't get on the wrong side of big price swings, and two, you're able to still fulfill what the customer needs?
Yeah, I would say it's extremely challenging. I'll reference this spring. No retailer wants to be holding a pound of extra inventory at the end of spring because we'll be looking at $200-300 reductions in commodity prices. So it's balancing your customers' needs with the customers who haven't committed yet, but you still want to have product for them, and trying to finish empty. Extremely challenging. I would say these last 5 years of retailing, fertilizer specifically, has been exceptionally challenging because of the volatility. So it's gray hairs well earned on my part, I feel.
Yeah, and there's probably, I can remember numerous discussions I've had about fertilizer and supply and flows and all those kinds of things. It's, be in constant communication with your retailer. And so, but I'm not quite sure if, like, it's been hard to have that. You really requires trust, right? Because retailer tells farmer, I think you should do X, Y, Z. Farmers have heard a lot about shortages over the past number of years. Some of those have worked out. Some of those have definitely not. And I think some of the communication around some of the supply stuff, it's kind of challenged. Is that fair?
I would agree with that. For sure it's challenged. I mean, as margin compresses at the grower level, right? They're doing whatever they can to try to negotiate as best a deal as they can to ensure they're locking in some sort of margin. No different than we do with our suppliers. So yeah, I would say it's a challenging time. One of the messages we've had with our growers is historically you're kind of one and done. You come in and you buy your fertilizer for next year. Might be the right time, might be the wrong time. But as risk managers in our business, and growers are managing risk all the time, they probably should look at spreading their fertilizer purchases out 2 or 3 times over the year to try to take that risk out of the one and done home run situation on your fertilizer. Not to say that summer fertilizer is not a great time to buy, because typically it is the lowest price of the year, but now we've got big carrying costs with interest rates associated to fertilizer as well. So if you're buying 11 or 12 months in advance and you're 6 or 7% interest rate on your operating line, you could be $30 to $40 a ton in carrying costs. So now you have to consider that when you're buying as well. So
Yeah.
there's, I think, a different strategy required going forward right now in this new environment.
I was just going to ask you, like, historically, buying early is better. So if you have the cash, you could really put that cash to work and create that home run scenario. I was just going to ask you if those pricing patterns have changed, where sometimes it's better to wait or versus that traditional buy early sort of strategy.
I think those previous strategies are out the window. I mean,
Okay.
the world we live in right now is so volatile with geopolitical events. The disruption in the Red Sea we have right now, and what it's doing to the vessel availability and freight rates is causing price escalation. The Ukrainian-Russian situations hasn't resolved itself. There's so much volatility in the world with these export nations, the Middle East, Russia, big exporters of nitrogen products, China as well. Those situations always seem to be highly volatile, and now it's created a new landscape in the fertilizer markets. So it's hard to say. The manufacturers in Western Canada definitely try to position product in the summer that they feel is good value to the retailer and the grower, but they're also trying to maximize their margin position as well. So they want to incentivize you to buy, but not leave too much money on the table. So it's a very delicate balance these days and highly volatile.
Yeah. So from your vantage point as a retailer, what are some other things we need to know about what's happening in the fertilizer market that, to create a better understanding at the farm gate level?
Yeah. One of the things we've found is that we haven't quite got past the COVID related maintenance schedules of a lot of these plants. A lot of these plants are still struggling to find workers to come on on their yearly turnarounds. And we're seeing a lot more plant failures than we had pre-COVID. I would estimate we've probably lost about 300,000 tons of domestic urea production due to plant outages this year. We have 2 plants that were down real early in the year for turnarounds, and they never go on schedule, it seems like. And now those delays are even longer because they're only 3/4 of the regular staff on site for these turnarounds. So then they're doing selective projects on these plants. So the reliability of the plants is definitely probably the biggest domestic challenge we have right now.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I've seen a lot of different received emails like, "Hey, did you know about this shutdown or that shutdown?" Or and days matter, right? We're not creating a whole bunch of like extra fertilizer for fun, right? Supplies are tight. It's a global market, right? So just a few days down, it can really create some short-term hiccups, and then even longer, it can create some bigger challenges.
Yeah, these plants they're world-class plants. So they're on a urea basis, they're minimum producing 2,500 ton a day of urea. So you have 2 or 3 of those plants down at a time, and they're down for 30 or 40 days. That's a significant amount of urea taken out of the availability to the retailer and the farmer.
Well, James, really do appreciate it. Thanks for joining us here today. All the best to you, and I am really looking forward to the business seminar next week that CMN is going to be holding.
Great. We look forward to having you.